Will he run again?
And I don't have a really good answer. I think it's a 50-50 proposition at this point. In many ways, the 2024 presidential election is just around the corner, but in other ways, it's an eternity from right now. And the president has many things to face between now and then. Yes, the second impeachment is now over. But there's a better than average chance he's going to face at least additional congressional investigations into various things that he did while he was president, and possibly criminal investigations. So you just don't know how those things will shake out and the impact they'll have on his political future over the course of the next 18 to 24 months.
Trump looms large over the GOP, no matter what he does at the moment. As you say, 18 months' time, you're almost well into the next election campaign. Does him leaving that option open just put the party in a bit of a holding pattern? Does it stop a likely next leader from emerging? Because who would want to go up against the popularity of Donald Trump?
Well, that is probably inevitable and the result of having a president. And it's rare in our system to have an ex-president who is qualified to run again. It hasn't happened since Jimmy Carter. It's only happened a couple times in our 240-year history. So it's unusual anyway to have an ex-president who is still a viable future candidate. His control over the party, I think, will depend upon how he handles himself the next 18 to 24 months. Again, he is still deprived of Twitter, which is his largest and most direct method of communicating with several hundreds of millions of people around the world. So whether or not he's able to adjust and continue to have that type of influence deprived of that megaphone remains to be seen.
The Republicans that voted to impeach him, we know the numbers weren't enough, but there was 7 in the upper house. Will there be a voter backlash against them? Is the, threats that the voters will boot them out at the midterms or next election, do you think that's likely?
Yeah, keep in mind, several of the senators, not several, there were only 7 who voted to convict the president anyway, 7 Republicans. I think 2 or 3 of those have announced they're not running for re-election anyway. So it's sort of a moot point. I think it remains to be seen. Susan Collins from Maine is a very moderate state. Mr. Cassidy from Louisiana is a very conservative state. I think it will be a case-by-case basis as to how those senators are treated the next time they come before the voters.
Yeah, look, it's hard to see how it might work out for some of them, but I guess some Republicans argued that they didn't think what Donald Trump did or didn't do on the day was the right thing, but they opposed using the system for a second impeachment for someone who was no longer president. I mean, I guess that's a proper conservative view. Do you accept that?
I do. I sort of do. It is a fantastic issue as to whether or not the impeachment power applies to someone who's no longer in office. And one of the really good questions I think the president's lawyers raised during the defense, they did a lousy job some of the time, but one of the questions they asked is, since this president now exists, if the Republicans take the House and the Senate, will they be able to impeach Hillary Clinton for her work as Secretary of State 5 or 10 years after the fact? It is a really dangerous sort of discussion to have. So put that aside. The constitutional issue is going to be fascinating to see how it evolves. We all hope that we are not moving to sort of the realm where it becomes normal for us to sue or to bring criminal charges against former elected politicians once they're out of office. That is more of a banana republic type of approach to law enforcement.
You've been around politics a long time, Mick Mulvaney. You know Donald Trump pretty well, I've got to say. Where does he sit now in the psyche of the American public? Are they more rusted on, his voters? Has he lost some skin over the last couple of months? How do you see that?
There's no easy answer to that. Keep in mind, 75 million people voted for him. It's the second highest vote total ever for a candidate after only Joe Biden. So you can't sort of paint with a broad brush. Certainly, there are going to be some people who are even more devoted to him than before. Personally, I happen to, just still being involved in politics, get the feeling that a lot of people are tired of it. They're tired of Donald Trump. They thought that the January 6th riots were too much. They don't blame him for incitement. They blame him, as I did, for his behavior during the riot, not before, but during and after. And I think a lot of folks are now looking for a new leader or leaders to the party. They loved his policies. They loved his achievements, which were tremendous, but they didn't like the baggage that it came with, and they're looking for somebody new.
Mr. Mulvaney, I interviewed Seb Gorka on this program last week, which was an interesting experience, to say the very least. But whenever there was a question about, any kind of criticism of Donald Trump or what he did or didn't do on that day or what his role is in bringing together a divided America, they were met with quite cagey answers. Is there a reluctance among some Conservatives or Trump supporters to address those problems? And I'd say the same for the left. You know, there's not a willingness on either side to admit any fault.
Yes is the answer to your question, but keep in mind, a lot of that is not personal to Donald Trump. We only have two major parties in a country of 350 million people. My party, just having lost, is going through the same type of infighting that you would have after you lose major elections. And we're trying hard to sort of keep things together. So it doesn't surprise me that folks aren't willing to attack Donald Trump. They might not want to attack him anyway, but even if they did, they don't want to divide the party. The Democrats have many of the same sorts of divisions in their party. It's just that they won the last election, so it's a lot smoother. Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden are still from different wings of their party. So your point is a good one, but I don't think, again, with the parties where they are this recently after the election, it's easy to get a feel yet for what they look like in the near future.
Mick Mulvaney, you're becoming a regular here on Sky News Australia, and we welcome that. Just quickly before I let you go, how do you think the world views America at the moment?
Well, certainly the press is a lot better, right? We'd seen some stuff when I was in the office that 90% of the press about the president was negative, and certainly that has changed. I can tell the folks around the world that not that much has changed in this country. Certainly the language has changed. Joe Biden's demeanor is different, but his government is behaving just as far to the left as ours was to the right. Things go on behind the scenes. So it's America back to normal in terms of the language, but things are not going to change that much in terms of the policies. Things on China will be the same. Our attitudes on trade will be similar. Some things, obviously, on climate will change dramatically. Racial equity will change dramatically. But vis-a-vis the rest of the world, you can sort of generally depend for America to continue in much the same direction, if with a different sort of temperature in the language.
And just quickly, what did you make of the 2-hour phone call with President Xi that Biden had?
I think it's good that he's having it. I think there's very few bipartisan things in Washington, D.C. right now. One of them is antipathy towards and concern about China. If there's anything that I think the Trump administration did well, and I think we did a lot of things well, it sort of raised the attention around the world to look and say, look, China is not the same type of actor as Australia or Germany or Argentina. It's a different kind of place, and we need to treat it differently. And I think more countries around the world are starting to react to that. Doesn't mean we're enemies. It just means that things are different, and we all should acknowledge that.